So, you kids like the Absolute Universe? It's pretty safe to say that DC's Absolute Universe is a massive hit. Absolute Batman breaking charts, Absolute Martian Manhunter heralded as one of the greatest comics of the last year with its political theming and beautiful art done by Javier Rodriguez. Absolute Wonder Woman not being written by Tom King, which is really funny because a year ago, I swear, when this whole initiative was announced and previews were given of Absolute Batman, people hated how he looked. I swear every dime a dozen TikTok account made the same reaction video. But now, the Absolute Universe has been dominating. Absolute Batman has been reprinted 11 times. That is genuinely unheard of before. A couple of reprints is already impressive, but 11 is insane. DC for almost a year straight has seen this one book and said, yeah, we need more. Even after a year, Absolute Batman #1 was still in the top 25 highest selling comics of 2025. Surely, with competition like this, Marvel would do so. Oh god. It really only dawned on me how popular this universe is when I was talking to my coworker whose favorite pastimes include Grown Ups 2, showed me an image of Absolute Joker and said, bro, did you see this? I consider being able to break that coworker barrier kind of the biggest green flag of something being mainstream. But why is this universe so popular? Out of all the comics in the last few years, I've never seen this much momentum. Sure, like an MCU movie is one thing, but an actual comic book? Every time there's a new issue release, or even a preview, people clamor and every drop feels like a genuine event. Like, for example, when was the last time Green Arrow had any cultural relevance? What, Arrow? I guess. Now his 3-page appearance in Absolute Evil where his head was put in a hydraulic press was all over the timeline. This isn't just DC milking their cash cow Batman, but something entirely new, and I think it's a larger shift in the comic medium as a whole. Created as a new jumping on point for the All-In initiative, it was the love child between Scott Snyder and Darkseid, described as putting heroes on the back foot, stripping them of a core element in their origin and seeing how they'll adapt without it. It's enriched by topical commentary, using the altered status quo to discuss ideas of resistance, political corruption, and how the powers that be want to keep us in this horrific status quo we often find ourselves in. All too conveniently right next to the release of the Ultimate Universe, with a very similar premise, but it's not that simple. DC already had its own Ultimate Universe with Earth 1, but despite modest success, wasn't that remembered compared to its contemporary, and the idea was dormant for years. And despite its similarities to the Ultimate Universe, Chris Convoy, an editor for the Absolute Universe, said that Scott Snyder proposed the idea to DC all the way back in 2021, but because it was something new, DC passed on the idea. Though, while the success of Marvel's Ultimate Universe is definitely a part of why the Absolute line did inevitably get greenlit, this was still a massive passion project for a lot of the creatives behind the Absolute Universe, which is one of the core reasons behind its success. In my humble YouTuber opinion that shouldn't matter, there are 3 reasons to the success of the DC Absolute Universe. Number 1, it's creator driven. It's easy to get into. And number 3, the hit NBC sitcom Community. Now, it's really easy to say screw Editorial, it's half my job, but look, Editorial has an important job. They're there to rein in creatives and make sure a line is consistent. You need guidelines when making a serialized story spanning generations. Look at the X-Men. They have such a robust and distinctive history because of how many stories they've gotten over the years. But due in part to how much editorial oversight there is, sometimes these books feel more like sacred brands that are too afraid to take actual risks. Look at what happened a couple of years ago. We went from a mutant state with an entirely different system, culture, and religion, but we blew that up, everyone is back to square one, and now we're reheating X-Men nachos for the sake of nostalgia baiting with these stories, rather than honoring them like before. But hey, look at all these recognizable X-Men from the hit streaming series, X-Men 97, only available on Disney Plus or plans with Disney Plus. Anyways, I think the editors of the Absolute Universe are able to balance between being able to keep a consistent story and leaving creatives enough room to truly flourish. But another part is that they're able to repackage these characters. What I mean is that I've seen a lot of people throw around that while they've never been able to get into Wonder Woman, they've fallen in love with her Absolute Universe book, which my friend is a self-report because the Absolute book is still very much similar to her mainline Diana, as this compassionate yet headstrong hero who sees the best in a situation. Despite growing up in hell, it doesn't change that, but reinforces her morals. Even seeing the good in demons, I guess you can say, even devils may cry. Despite this, Kelly Thompson is able to incorporate new ideas like her adopted mother being Cersei and giving her magic. But this is due in part to Kelly Thompson not having to uphold the brand that is Wonder Woman. Also, gives creators enough time to actually establish ideas and breathe. Jeff Lemire of Absolute Flash talked about how he at least has 2 years worth of ideas and doesn't plan on stopping anytime soon, which frankly, come on man, his body is still warm, though this is completely unheard of in the comics medium. Creative teams no longer have these multi-year long tenure on characters. It shows that Scott Snyder has the confidence in his creative team to give them that much room to truly grow. It's really funny to see that contrast really come into play. Going off of a short story from Dennis Camp, he talks about how he was just called one night by Scott Snyder and he personally asked him to write an Absolute book for him. Calls back and says, how about this? And Scott was like, oh wow, a psychic trip of a book that's core theme that apathy is the leading cause of all our evils in the world and features a big green guy? Yeah, no, of course, here's 6 issues. Actually, fuck, that's my bad. Here's 12. Actually, here's all the issues you want. By having so much faith in creatives really lets their ideas and personalities bleed into the books they're writing. There ends up being a book for anyone and everyone to get into. Do you like coming of age stories where we constantly torture a 16-year-old? Absolute Flash. Do you like Greek epics about motherhood? Absolute Wonder Woman. Will your wife not call you back? Absolute Martian Manhunter. While status quo is important, being able to bend the rules without breaking them is just as important and a vital key to the Absolute Universe. But with all these creative teams and 6 ongoings, soon to be 8, you would think it would be a massive pain in the you-know-what. Well, guess what? You would be wrong. People say comics are inaccessible, and they wouldn't be entirely wrong. Decades of continuity, reboots, events, tie-ins, you need a syllabus to get into the X-Men. It's a unique situation where we have a website literally titled Read Comics Online. Access isn't the problem, it's structure. You see, most people's first experience with the graphic novel medium aren't American heroes. They're manga nowadays. You got your My Hero, your Chainsaw Man, and even Demon Slayer are all pretty easy to follow. They all start at chapter 1. You just start at the beginning, and that expectation changes how new readers approach comics. Because when those same readers try getting to Cape Comics, they're told things like, oh no, don't start there, start from here. And when they start from the beginning, they're flashbanged by 1960s lingo. What the hell's a goon? Do I inherently agree with this sentiment? Oh god, no, I really don't think comics are all that difficult to get into, and I think a lot of this inaccessibility is kind of overblown and ends up being more gatekeepy than anything else.
It's a stereotype, and it's offensive.
Now, I bring up manga so much because this is seemingly an intentional approach the Absolute editorial team has taken. Chris Conroy talks about this very same idea. They know that readers who are getting into comics feel easily discouraged. And it's completely fair. Comics have been going on for so long, and when there's these massive line events, it can kill the momentum for a lot of these books. Comics like Absolute Batman and Wonder Woman are able to weave in these smaller arcs in between larger ones, but you're never overwhelmed. The monthly structure works in their favor instead of against them. Look over at Marvel with the Ultimate Universe. Originally designed to be a fresh start, but if you wanted to read Ultimate Spider-Man, you would have to read Ultimate Invasion, then Ultimate Universe, and then possibly even a little bit of the Ultimates because he's kind of a part of them. This is assuming you even know what the original Ultimate Universe and the maker are, but that also implies you have to read Secret Wars. What I'm trying to say is that for a universe which was made with accessibility in mind, failed at that because of how much crossover and homework you had to do. While the Absolute Universe, once again, was able to avoid this, but also now, because they built their readership, can do these crossovers because you're not forced to jump from book to book, and B, you made it not feel like homework. People read them because they don't have to, but because they truly want to learn more about the world you built. Absolute Evil and Arkham work so well because of that. The ultimate reading guide boils down to look at whatever book interests you and start from issue 1. It's so simple, it's almost stupid, but that's why it works. Keep it dumb. Community, which is kind of tricky to discuss because never before have I seen so much hype for a singular line of comics. Each issue leads to fan art, memes, and even fan theories that leave the reader base engaged between issues and continues the conversation going. Like, for example, I remember a lot of buzz when Batman's Rogues Gallery was his friends in the Absolute Universe. It plays on our understanding of these characters and builds tension by asking how are they going to become the villains we know them as. But also, writers like Scott Snyder are their own hype men and build a connection with readers by engaging with them, which I think is so refreshing because it's really easy to forget there are genuine faces behind these books, and by having them front and center makes it apparent they really do care for what they're writing. Scott also goes out of his way to give us previews and constantly keeps us in the know, dropping tidbits of lore and ideas in interviews. It's kind of the perfect form of advertisement. It's completely community driven, you're not paying them to do it. Having such a widespread community, you're unable to escape the conversation. You're forced to interact with it, it's directly from the book itself. I remember a meme floating around of the Absolute Sirens, and when the actual Absolute IV got announced, people were disappointed that it looked one-to-one to the Prime version. But then Snyder tweeted that we should wait and see, and oh boy, we should have because we were dead wrong. I think moments like this are what the Absolute Universe needs. Even in a negative situation, Scott was able to turn it around and make it a pretty funny one in retrospect. Community, especially in the comics medium, is difficult to navigate, and seeing how they've been able to handle it so well is really nice to see. And honestly, I think that's the real secret sauce behind the Absolute Universe. The Absolute Universe works because it remembered something comics quietly forgot somewhere along the way. Comics are supposed to be fun. The Absolute Universe didn't just reinvent characters. It reminded why they fell in love with comics in the first place.